Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. And in case you hadn't noticed, yes, I have company in my lap. So, Audie's here with us today. It's been a dark, gloomy day. It's still mid-afternoon, and my lights have gone out on the porch, gone on the porch. And they are triggered by a daylight sensor. So when it gets dark, those lights go on, and they have been on since 2 this afternoon. So yes, Audie is not amused. He had plenty of sunshine yesterday, and none today. Life is not fair to a small cat. So he's here looking for attention, and we'll have to see how long this lasts. Yellow for Catherine, for Lex's mom, for everybody dealing with cancer. We are wishing you all the very, very best. And today, as I mentioned yesterday, we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday, talking about vanishing skill sets. And a lot of you really seem to, connect with that, at least based on the comments. So we're going to hit the next one today. Cooking. Remember, that was always the second half of that home economics year we were required to take back in junior high school. So, 22 seconds from now, after the intro, we will be back. Okay, before we actually get started, we have some goodies from Kiley. Now, I had in fact started to open this package on camera, but I basically had to call an audible and change things up because I was I was making a mess, and I was actually jostling the camera around. So we are going to start with this. Anybody want to take a guess on what this is? Absolutely. It's a little Queen Elizabeth corgi. It's Susan, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Queen Elizabeth's first corgi was named Susan. So that's who this is. And let's see what we've got here. We've got another. Oh. And we've got a queen to go along with the corgi. So that is just too precious for words. And I'm going to set this out of the way, mostly because Audie's got enough in this box for him. I do not need to be sharing my stuff with a cat. Next up, we have this, which is a little zippered pouch. And there's an elastic band on the back. So you can slip this. Do I have... This is the best I can do right off the top, but you can fit it onto a book like this. Now, obviously, it would work with a larger book, and I do have books over here, but this is the one that was handy. And it'll keep your place in the book, as well as holding your pens and pencils and whatever. And, in fact, there is another one here. Well, I'll show you the other one when I come to it. We've got some goodies for Audie. And this is Temptations cat treats. Now, Audie knows these. He loves them. In fact, Colleen sent me a beautiful little mug a few weeks ago, and it's on the counter holding Audie's little squishy cat treats. Now, what I think the intent is that you snip off the end and then hold it and squish it while your cat eats it. Now, thank you, but no. What I do with these is I snip off the end, squeeze them out into a little dish, and I will let Audie eat it from the dish all by himself. And I get these all the time because Audie goes through periods when he just doesn't want to eat anything. And quite frankly, it worries me. So if he will eat the treats, I will get him the treats. And I have done the research. The treats are perfectly nutritious enough to use them in lieu of cat food. The problem being, of course, that they're too expensive to feed them to your cat instead of cat food. But when he gets into those I'm not eating mom periods, it's just, I bribe him, basically. And I will feed him treats instead of food to keep his little belly full. So, yeah. And we've got another one of these. And this is, look at that. This is a little kitty lollipop that apparently I am supposed to hold out and let him lick. Nope. What's going to happen is I'm going to teach Audie how to hold his own lollipop because I love my cat, but I am not spending my days hand feeding him. But I'm sure he's going to like it. And let's see what else we've got here. Oh, yes, these. I have a few more of these around. She sent me, I think it was like half a dozen of these. These are bookmarks, and you can stick a pen through the little loop. Clip it on your book, and then you've got a pen right attached to your bookmark. I think that's a very clever idea. Oh, here. And she sent one with a pen attached, so you can see how it works. So I think that is a very clever idea. So I'm going to put those away. I'm just dropping them back into the box. I almost dropped that one. Catnip. So Audie's going to be very pleased with this. And we got catnip spray here. So that in the box. Oh, and now let's start taking a look at the Audie toys. A fish. It's a beta. It's got that nice long tail. And here, a bird. So apparently Colleen is determined to encourage my bad cat's worst habits because he does go out hunting birds. And another bird. Another fish. Oh, this one's a fancy goldfish. So, yes, we've got plenty of toys here for Audie. So those are going to go into the box. I don't know how long they're going to stay there. Not very long once Audie figures out that's where they are. And she had mentioned these. So I'm going to set these aside and I'm going to open them for you. But this, I have one of these. It's a little black light, and it shines bright blue. I'm not going to be able to get this one to work for you right now because I have to open up the back, pull out a little slip of cellophane they have in between the battery and the connection. So, yes, I will do that later, but I do know what these are. These are little mini black lights. You throw them on a keychain, and it's a very easy way to identify things like uranium glass. So, handy. Now, let's see. Oh, this is a lipstick. We're going to open this right now. Yes, theoretically, we're going to open this. This is sealed in some kind of plastic that... there we go. I was thinking, does anybody ever happen to remember from the Pentagon Papers when they spoke about Richard Nixon having a bottle of aspirin with teeth marks all over it? And I was thinking to myself, I'm going to have to resort to the Richard Nixon method of opening this. Fortunately, I did not. Now, let's see. Okay, there we go. Oh, Very, very similar to that 1980s color. How nice. Okay, so for those of you who did not see that particular video, I was bemoaning the fact that I was going to have to replace a 40-year-old lipstick by a company that, although it was absorbed by another company, is no longer independently in business, and the name of the color was 179. Not very helpful. And so we have a contender here. So, Colleen, I'm going to try that, and I will let you know. And now we're coming on to this. This is the one I was going to open for you so you could see. Colleen is not the only person who mentioned this to me, that you could get little magnet backings for pins. And we've got a whole bunch of them here. Now, the great thing about these magnets is they really will stay in a cluster like this. It's just they tend to just sort of seek out one another. So it's a little disc, and you see that little bar? That is actually a little tiny hollow tube. And you take your brooch, drop the pin in, and then secure the brooch, and then simply stick it to another one of these magnets because, did you hear the click? Well, here, let me do this a little closer to the microphone. See, they just naturally snap together. These are rare earth magnets, so they're very, very strong. And these are darling. Those are going to prove to be very useful. By the way, I'm shoving them into my pocket because, yeah, I keep a special box for my magnets, and it's like a little box in a larger box in a larger box, because wherever you put it, like metal things start to migrate toward the stack of magnets. So I have to be very careful where I store this. And the final item, oh no, wait, sorry, the next to final item. This is another of these bookmarks. So you would just slip it over your book, and it will hold your place. And oh, here, I've got it inside out. And this one has a little pouch for your pen, as opposed to a little zippered packet like the other one did. So very, very handy. Now, this is, oh, she put it in a plastic bag because she was mailing it. So, oh, it didn't leak. There's no residue on the bottle. Now, let's see, what is this? This is Molten Brown of London. And this is apparently the late Queen's favorite bath gel. But it's also a shower gel, which is good for me because I don't do baths. I do showers. So we're going to have some fun with this. I'll probably bring that little Susan Corgi into the bathtub with me, take a shower, soap up the little corgi, soap up myself, and we'll all play Queen for a day. So, thank you, Colleen. All right. What do I need to do? I'm going to need to move this stuff because I've got everything in a box at my feet, and Audie's already eyeing it. So, I'll be right back. Okay, I got everything moved, and I gave Audie one of the little toy birds. So if you hear scuffling around in the background, that's Audie playing with his new toy. Okay, yesterday we started talking about the skills that are being lost. They're passing away because it's just not feasible for most women to bake bread or make clothing. And in a way, it's a shame. So this is something that many of you commented on. You learned in school. You learned from your mothers, your grandmothers. Someone had, in fact, mentioned that the Amish and Mennonites in her area are the only ones keeping these skills alive. And as you all know, 2 doors down, I got a Mennonite farm. So, yeah, I have Amish and Mennonite neighbors, and I know they do keep these skills alive. And when I stopped home tanning, I was very grateful to have my Mennonite neighbors because I had a place to send all of my canning jars, and Lord knows I had a lot of them, and they can be very, very expensive. And I was glad that they weren't going to waste. So what can I tell you? They are definitely keeping the old skills alive. But I know from my own community that the Amish and the Mennonites are shopping in grocery stores. They are buying clothing at Target. And I've seen it happen. So it's like I've been there, I've watched them do it. And I can see for myself when I walk down the street that, yeah, I know some of their clothing is homemade. I know some of it absolutely is purchased from stores. So even they are losing these skills in the modern world. I don't blame them for this. The reality is, if you can go to a place like Walmart or Target and get, let's say a little boy's shirt for $5 or $10, and I know you can do that. I've seen the shirts there. Is it really worth the time it takes to do all those buttons and buttonholes and the plackets and the collars? And a little boy's collared and buttoned shirt is not a quick and easy project. Anyone who's ever made one knows this. And I cannot fault anyone who says, I can get it for $6, I'm going to do that. But I think even among our very traditional communities, the skills are not being as actively utilized as they once were. Now, I'm not opposed to technology. I am not opposed to progress. Can you hear him with his bird? Because I certainly can. Yes, Audie's having fun with the bird. That's the skittering noises you're hearing in the background. Okay, that was a bigger one. Apparently the bird got away from him. I'm not trying to say the old ways are the best ways. Technology is crap. No, I love technology. For people with disabilities, technology is the great equalizer. I have a computer that lets me do things I could not do 20 or 30 years ago. And 20 or 30 years ago, my eyesight was a lot better than it is today. So yeah, hallelujah, I love the internet. You know, it's like, geez, take anything you want, but don't take my internet connection. So no, that's not what my concern is. I think my concern about the passing of these skills is not that no one's doing it, because even I had long periods of my life when I did not sew. I have a bunch of skills I acquired as a child that I very rarely utilize. Hand-stitched buttonholes. My goodness, even in periods when I was sewing, I was machine stitching those buttonholes, but I can do it by hand. And I think that's what is troubling me, not being able to utilize the skills means not having options. And I just feel that we are shortchanging the children when we are not giving them the tools, even if they never want to use them. You know, I was taught skills in school. For example, learning how to tell time on an old analog clock. I've seen plenty of children today who don't know how to do that. Cursive. They are pumping children out of the school system who cannot read or write cursive. But to be fair, they're teaching them to type on computers. And I think that is a good skill, and I'm glad they are being taught that. But I do think they're losing something when they're not teaching cursive. We were all taught it, and Frankly, it's not something I use every single day. On the other hand, keep in mind, I studied calculus, and I do not use that. I'm thinking, do I even use that once every 3 or 4 years? No, probably not. But I still learned it. I learned a whole lot of things in school that I do not use. I don't even know where that bird is now, but I am hearing noises that are worrying me coming from the other room. I learned a whole lot of skills that I do not use in my everyday life, but I'm still glad I have them in case I ever need them. And I think some basic survival skills, knowing how to feed yourself, knowing how to put clothing on your own back, is a basic survival level skill that we should not be denying our young people. So that leads me from sewing into cooking. I can remember, and this is not back in the 50s, this is actually back in the late 1980s, when I started seeing surveys that were coming out, and I was in Rhode Island at the time, and Rhode Island, probably because it's a small state, but actually, to tell you the truth, there are a few other reasons for this, but Rhode Island tends to be the perfect test market for American retail companies. It could be because it's a small state. It's also a very diverse state. But it's sort of an encapsulation that most marketing research companies really love. So research was going on in Rhode Island, and because I was in Rhode Island at the time, I was able to get my hands not just on the results of the research, but the actual research methodology, and it was sound. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, the profile of the family grocery shopper had shifted, and it was no longer a 27-year-old woman, which it had been previously, and was a 13-year-old girl. So that was the first change we saw in terms of how we were adjusting to mom in the workforce. Now, that has changed since then. This happened, remember that tipping point, when 50% of women went into the workforce was 1979. At this point, we're only maybe 10 years later. And I don't think that we as a society or individual families had quite figured out how to cope with that. So the daughters in the family would be doing the grocery shopping. I found that very interesting especially because it seemed to only have been a blip on the radar. It is no longer a 13-year-old girl who is the average profile of the shopper, but it was the norm for a while to go into grocery stores and see young girls doing the family's grocery shopping. Again, like I say, that has subsequently changed because with women at this point, it's not just half the women in the workforce. We've got most of the women in the workforce, and people have had to make different arrangements. So we're getting better able to cope with this. The adults are making the grocery decisions now, again, after that little blip. But we are still not back in the days when you went into a grocery store and bought dinner ingredients. You would go into the grocery store and you would get a piece of meat, you would get a few vegetables, you would get some herbs, you would make a stew. No. You want a stew now, you buy it in a can. You want dinner, you go into the frozen food section and get it pre-made. By the way, in most stores, you can not only get pre-made meals from the freezer section, but you can go over to the deli counter and you could just pick up a pint of macaroni salad and a pint of potato salad and whatever, take it home with you, and they've basically made your dinner. One of my local stores is offering pre-made meals. It's like you order a meal. I've never done it, so I don't know the mechanics of it. And they just deliver it to you, and all you have to do is stick it in the oven or possibly even the microwave, and the family is fed. Here's the downside: processed food. When you are buying your dinner in a can or a freezer bag, it's been processed. And I found this out, to my dismay, because I'm very careful about my sodium. I don't have high blood pressure, but I lost my mother to complications of hypertension, and my younger, keep this in mind, younger brother as well. So this is like a time bomb in my family's genetics. And I think the only reason it hasn't hit me is because I've always been very careful about things like exercise and my sodium intake. But when I started actually actively tracking my sodium intake, and this was following the death of my younger brother, you better believe I took a look at that. And I started to just absolutely marvel at the amount of sodium that was turning up in food products where I never expected it. So I would say to myself, I'm going to go out and eat healthy and I'm going to get some sushi. Well, you realize the soy sauce that I'm dripping all over that sushi, that has blown my sodium allowance for 3 days. Wow. Now I knew there was sodium in soy salt, but I didn't know how much. I didn't realize how much sodium there was in a packet of instant oatmeal. By the way, it's alarming. Check it out for yourself. We have sodium in almost everything that comes out of a package. And if you don't have a reason to track it, you probably won't be tracking it. And you're probably consuming a lot more sodium than you ever imagined. So that was the one ingredient for me that was telling me I got to stay away from pre-processed foods. I really have to, because too much sodium was sneaking into my diet without me even realizing it, because I would go to the store and I would get a package of frozen vegetables. And because they had some sauce on it, bang, sodium through the roof. So I don't buy that sort of thing anymore. In fact, I rarely buy frozen vegetables anymore if it's not, like out in the produce section. If I'm not looking at a whole entire vegetable, I'm probably not going to buy it. The downside of that is I am by myself because I don't feed Audie vegetables. He wouldn't eat them anyway, but I don't even offer. Because I'm by myself, buying things like a lone carrot or a lone potato is a massive challenge in the stores these days, because I have to buy enough to feed an army. So if I want carrots, what I have to do is get this whole clump of carrots, and I look like I'm off to feed the bunnies or something. Prep them, parboil them and freeze them, because otherwise they're not going to last long enough just in my refrigerator. But if I want carrots, that's how I have to do it. I have to cook up enough carrots to feed an army, freeze them, and then just gradually use them up out of the freezer. On the other hand, and this is where we go back to my original point, because I know how to cook, I know how to do that. But I have to wonder what becomes of one of our little Gen Z babies who might be looking at the same issues, wanting to cut down on the sodium and not having a clue in the world how to do it. Because if he or she wants to buy produce, they're going to have to buy so much of it, because there is no single-serve carrot in the grocery store. They're going to have to buy so much of it. They'll have to buy it in at least some degree of bulk. And then they have to know how to cook that up, Yes, dear. And prepare it. You already got a bird. Don't come back looking for another one. And they have to know how to prepare it and know how to freeze it, etc. And I don't think very many of them do. So when I talk about survival skills, I really am talking about survival, because being able to control your diet to keep your blood pressure in check can be the difference between life and death. Because frankly, it was for my mother and my brother. So yeah, I look at this, and it's not about some strange, distant person I don't know, I've never heard of. Oh, such and so died of complications of hypertension. No. These are among my closest relatives. So, yeah, it's not just something that happens to the other guy. It is a situation that must be taken seriously. So, I guess the takeaway is we need to look at these kids and whether or not we, as their elders, as the people responsible for preparing them to go out into the world, if we're doing our jobs. And I would have to say right now, I'm pretty sure we're not. Other takeaway, check the sodium levels in the food you eat. Just grab a pencil and a piece of paper and log the amount of sodium you consume every day for the space of about a week. And check everything. Check the sodium in your soda. Check the sodium in your packaged foods. Go online. Look up the naturally occurring sodium in some of the foods you eat. Eggs have sodium, a higher sodium content than you might imagine. Fish does. That I kind of expected that, because saltwater fish is going to have a certain amount of salt. But yeah, take a look at how much sodium you are consuming, especially if you have blood pressure issues, because you're probably taking in a lot more than you ever realized. And I would dare to say that the biggest culprit in all of our diets is pre-processed food. So that's what I have for you today. We had a lovely unboxing from Colleen. Yes, we have me sounding like the voice of doom, and I do not mean to do that. But I do want us to take seriously the deficit in the education of what is our grandchildren's generation. And just be mindful. It never hurts to just talk to them about the ingredients in the foods they're eating, because it's a good start. And we can save them a world of pain somewhere down the road. All right, enough gloom and doom. We are going to take a look at a slideshow. On the way out, I am going to find a happy, lively one to compensate for the gloomy message. And I hope to see you all next time. In the meanwhile, have a terrific day.